My partner betrayed my trust through text after 5 years together, and while she was away, I quietly plotted my departure, leaving her a cold farewell note. To give you some context, I'm 34, and I used to think that finding a genuine, honest woman was akin to spotting a mythical creature, something you hear about but never actually see. My personality is straightforward and no nonsense, unlike those nice guys who lament about being stuck in the friend zone. I work in construction, and while my job is demanding, it pays well. Despite pouring my heart into previous relationships, I often felt like it was never enough. I would send flowers for no reason, remember anniversaries, and genuinely listen to my partners. I tried to empathize and encourage them, but I always ended up feeling hurt. It made me question whether all my kindness and hard work were in vain. I was losing faith in the idea that those qualities were valued anymore. About 5 years ago, I met Sarah, who was 31 at the time. Our initial meeting was nothing out of the ordinary. A mutual friend introduced us at a casual gathering. There was something about her smile that felt genuine, and I found myself drawn to it. There was nothing fake or forced about it. I got her number, and we started dating. After just 3 months, being together felt joyful. We clicked in a way I hadn't experienced before. I always put in my best effort, and I can still recall the outfits we wore on our first date as vividly as if it were yesterday. Initially, I thought our connection was casual, but I soon realized I was developing deeper feelings. I felt like I had finally found the one. Sarah was special, and we shared many interests, including hiking and trying out new restaurants. I believed it was healthy for us to have our own hobbies as well. I enjoyed restoring vintage motorcycles and attending bike shows, and it didn't bother me that she found it fascinating. She had a passion for creating pottery, making bowls and vases, and while I lacked the patience for it, I appreciated her art. It provided us with plenty of conversation and learning opportunities. In the beginning, everything felt right. Despite being young and still figuring things out, we worked well together. It felt natural. We often talked about our future and made plans together. Our jobs were quite different, which I'll elaborate on later. My days were dominated by on-site work in construction, and even though it was challenging, I took pride in my honest profession. Sarah, on the other hand, worked in sales, and her performance was measured by software metrics. After spending years in a traditional office, her company allowed her to work from home, which I initially loved. I thought that living together while she worked would give her more freedom and allow us to spend more time together. I always supported her ambitions and was proud of her achievements. I've always considered myself a good partner. I'm not trying to brag, but I focus on being supportive and protective of my significant other. I believe that emotional support and intimacy are essential in a relationship. Sarah and I worked hard to build our connection. She seemed trustworthy. I used to worry about my partners being dishonest, but Sarah was different. I wasn't naive enough to think infidelity was impossible, but I genuinely believed we had a special bond built on respect and trust. That's why I was so deeply affected by what happened next. It started subtly. Sarah began to act strangely. It's hard to explain, but she seemed distant. She would take calls in another room, hiding her phone screen as I walked by. She seemed less interested in me and spent less time with me. She often complained about being tired, even on weekends when we had plans. At first, I brushed it off, thinking she was just stressed from work. I kept telling myself, don't jump to conclusions, it's probably nothing. I didn't want to believe it was serious. My initial reaction was curiosity. I wanted to know why she was acting this way and what was bothering her. I lost sight of the bigger picture, though, as her odd behavior continued. I hardly saw Sarah for a week, and those everyday moments that used to keep me going began to dwindle, making me question whether I was overreacting. However, my suspicions grew. I didn't immediately think she was cheating. I suspected she might be dealing with a personal issue, perhaps even a health problem. One Saturday night, we were watching a movie, and as usual, she seemed preoccupied, constantly checking her phone. When I asked her about it, she insisted they were work emails. This was unusual for her, and I started to feel anxious. I confided in my friend Mark, who is a decent guy but has a cynical view of relationships, especially after his own traumatic breakup a few years back. When I shared my concerns with him, he laughed and said, "Dude, if she's a woman, if things didn't improve, I knew I had to take action." I decided to make a special dinner, lasagna, her favorite. I set the table with candles to create a warm and inviting atmosphere, hoping she would feel comfortable enough to confide in me. After she got home, I waited for the right moment to bring it up. Once we finished eating, I expressed my concerns about her strange behavior and asked, "Are you cheating on me?" She looked taken aback, her hands trembling as she struggled to meet my gaze. Watching her stutter and fumble for words was painful. Eventually, she denied it, claiming she was shocked I would even think to ask such a thing. She professed her love for me and reminded me that we had been together for 5 years. Her tears flowed uncontrollably, and I felt a pang of guilt, but deep down, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Perhaps it was James' words echoing in my mind, or maybe it was just my gut instinct telling me that things weren't right. Instead of being upset by my accusation, she seemed more hurt and offended that I would even consider it. I apologized for my doubts, but she took my words too quickly, and it didn't feel rational. I wasn't proud of what I had done, but I felt it was necessary. I pretended to trust her, and after I apologized again, we went to bed. However, sleep eluded me. I knew I needed her to trust me again if I was going to uncover the truth. Her defenses had to come down, and I had to wait for the right moment. The night felt endless, and my suspicion was gnawing at me. I thought to myself, if she thinks I'm this naive, she has another thing coming. I waited until I was sure Sarah was asleep. My phone showed 3:17 a.m. as I lay there, staring at the ceiling for what felt like hours. My stomach churned, and my heart raced, but I knew I had to act. I carefully reached for her phone on the nightstand, quietly got out of bed, and headed to the bathroom. Once inside, I scrolled through her texts. At first, I found nothing in her photo gallery, but when I checked her messages, I noticed a contact named Harry's Plumbing. Why was Sarah messaging a plumber? It was so obvious that it had to be a fake name, and I almost laughed at how childish and transparent it was. But then my world came crashing down. As I clicked on the conversation, I was met with explicit messages, pet names, and declarations of how much they missed each other. There were even nearly nude photographs exchanged. Sarah had written, "You're making it hard to focus on work, you know." In response, Harry had said, "I can't stop thinking about your smile." Sarah had sent a photo of herself in new lingerie with the caption, "Wish you were here to take this off me." The messages were filled with suggestive texts and emotional connections, all without explicitly stating they had slept together, but it was clear that an affair had been going on for at least 2 weeks, perfectly matching her unusual behavior. As I read those messages on the bathroom floor, I felt like I was about to have a panic attack. My heart raced uncontrollably, and I struggled to hold onto the phone as my hands shook. I felt like shouting, like I needed to wake her up and confront her right then and there. The messages were ugly, and I won't go into detail, but I was horrified, indignant, and grieving for the 5 years I had invested in this relationship. I wondered how she could do this to me. Did she ever truly love me? It felt like my entire world had been turned upside down. I was grateful to discover this before we got married or had children, but I was furious about her methods. The ridiculous emojis, the childish code names, it all felt like I was losing control of my sanity. I knew I had to leave, I needed to breathe and figure out my next steps. For the next hour, I documented everything. I took notes and screenshots to capture the evidence of her betrayal. Once I had everything documented, I needed a plan. Sitting on the bathroom floor, I contemplated my options, unsure of what to do next. My mind was racing with ideas. I was furious and considered alerting our families, posting everything online, or even handing out flyers at her workplace. I thought about moving out, hiring a lawyer, or leaving quietly. I realized I had power, and I wanted her to know just how deeply she had hurt me. My finances were solid, my union membership provided me with security. However, Sarah struggled in her sales job, and her income was low. I had helped her maintain her lifestyle in our expensive city, and I knew she would struggle without my financial support. Sarah found me cold and unfeeling. We slept in separate rooms, and I rarely spoke to her in complete sentences. I was too filled with anger and resentment to even look at her. My appetite dwindled. I couldn't comprehend how she could betray me like this. I learned the hard way that it's crucial to take your time before getting married, and I want to share this lesson with you. I'm grateful that Sarah and I didn't tie the knot. I dodged a bullet there. It just goes to show that you can never truly know someone until you've lived with them for an extended period and witnessed both their best and worst sides. This realization was now painfully familiar to me. Our lease was set to expire in 3 months, and since it was under my name, I thought that would be the best time to approach the situation. With more time, I could arrange everything and maximize my actions. Finding an affordable apartment near my job took some effort, and I also had to pack boxes and enlist friends to help with the move. I was planning meticulously, but there was still a lot to do. A month after I discovered her affair, I learned that Sarah and James were sharing a bed. This revelation only made it easier for me to decide to leave. It eliminated any lingering doubts or desires to fix our relationship. That was the final nail in the coffin. I had heard that cheaters often lose interest when the thrill of the forbidden is removed. Sarah and James' relationship was built on lies, and that was their problem, not mine. I was gathering my strength and finalizing my plan as the last month of our lease approached. It was time to move, and I was ready because I had prepared for months. Sarah would be working late on the day I chose, claiming she had a big client dinner, but I didn't care. It just gave me the opportunity one needed. I had already arranged for my friends, including Mark, who knew everything, to help me. They were eager to support me, reminding me that I deserved better. I felt fortunate to have such good men in my corner. We met at the apartment early in the afternoon. Most of my belongings were packed in boxes with clear labels for easy identification. We worked efficiently, and the moving truck carried away about 80% of the apartment's contents. I made a conscious effort to take as little as possible from her: no cookware, electronics, furniture, or clothing. I wanted her to feel the emptiness I had experienced for months. I liked that my new apartment was closer to work. It was small but clean, a fresh start for me. In just 4 hours, we moved everything out. Given my financial situation, it felt remarkably quick. I remember touring the apartment one last time before leaving. Sarah had brought a few pieces of furniture into the relationship, but the walls and shelves were nearly bare. It felt desolate, and I took satisfaction in knowing I was doing this. A strange mix of anger and grief fueled my actions, but I also felt a sense of freedom. I was finally free. Before leaving, I did one last thing. I wrote a simple letter on a piece of paper. "Goodbye. Enjoy," it read, signed with Mark. I had considered writing a long, scathing letter to express my anger and frustration, but I decided that less was more. This concise, direct message felt more appropriate. I placed the note on the kitchen counter, ensuring she would see it when she returned home. It may have been cliché, but it felt right. I told my friends I could handle the rest, but they helped me unpack some essentials at the new place. I needed time to adjust, and after thanking them again, they left. I was lucky to have their support. Next came the hard part: ghosting her. My phone exploded with notifications when Sarah got home and found the note. She panicked, sending calls, texts, and messages across all social media platforms. In just a few hours, she went from furious accusations to emotional pleas for forgiveness. She even tried to reach out through mutual acquaintances, seeking help, but I never responded. Every message and attempt to contact me was ignored. My revenge was quiet, but I wanted her to feel the same confusion, apprehension, and powerlessness that I had felt when I discovered her betrayal. I haven't spoken to her in 3 weeks since moving out, and I find some enjoyment in imagining her worry. She must be terrified. Update 2: a few days after I left, the landlord contacted me on my cell phone, evidently confused and unsure of what was happening. He must have heard Sarah's side of the story but wanted to hear mine. I told him everything about the affair, about Mark, and how I couldn't live with a cheater, so I left and informed him I wouldn't be renewing the lease. The landlord was sympathetic. I had been a good tenant for years, always paying my rent on time and desperately searching for a new place to live. I felt a sense of relief knowing that her betrayal had led to this situation. Some people might think I'm being cruel and that I should feel sorry for Sarah, but I didn't. I had been a good partner, supportive, reliable, and caring, and she threw it all away for a fleeting thrill. She made her choices, and now she had to face the consequences. This was about the pain and disgust she inflicted on me, not about the apartment or the belongings I left behind. You can't have the best of both worlds, a hidden affair and a loving, committed partner. The landlord conducted the walkthrough and informed me that everything was in order, and my security deposit would be refunded. I was pleased to hear that. He also mentioned that he had delivered Sarah an eviction notice and praised me for how I handled the situation. I thanked him again and expressed my relief at moving on. I also blocked Sarah on all platforms and focused on my own life. A month after my last update, Sarah tried to call me from a blocked number, which went straight to voicemail. I recognized her voice immediately when I listened to the message. When I returned the call, I could hear her crying. She was desperate, saying she had nowhere to go and repeatedly apologizing. She sounded defeated and worn out, finally admitting to the affair. I'm so sorry, she kept saying, offering weak explanations. It just happened. I didn't mean for it to happen, I was confused. It was pitiful. She even tried to reminisce about our happy times together, hoping to win back my affection. You still care about me, don't you? She asked, her voice cracking with desperation. I listened to her sobs, wanting her to understand the weight of her decisions. I couldn't help but let out a bitter laugh, filled with incredulity and derision. It's funny, I said, you lied to me and hid the truth for weeks or even months, and now you want my sympathy? You made your choices, and now you're feeling the consequences. My final blow was delivered coldly, you have James. Go live with him. I hung up before she could respond, cutting off any chance for discussion or pleading. I didn't want to hear her excuses. After that, I blocked her on Facebook, Instagram, and all my other social media accounts, erasing her online presence as thoroughly as I had removed her from my physical space. I considered deleting old photos and notes, but I decided to keep them for now as reminders of my struggles and triumphs. As I sat back, I felt a strange sense of tranquility wash over me. It wasn't joy or victory, it was closure. I felt relieved after months of carrying that heavy burden. I justified my actions to myself, telling myself, I have no idea where she'll go, and honestly, I didn't care. She made her bed, and now she could lie in it. I became even more convinced that she deserved all the problems she faced because of her choices. This wasn't about revenge, it was about her having to confront the reality of her betrayal and the lies that had shattered our relationship. I was acutely aware of my own suffering, the sleepless nights, the anxiety, and the feelings of worthlessness. No one should have to endure that. I felt a sense of justice in knowing that if she became homeless, it was a consequence of her actions. That was my last thought, a clear indication of how little I cared for her now. Thank you for following my story. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated on more shocking real-life stories that unfold around us.